This story will completely change the way you think about love and betrayal. Madison, a woman who once thought her life was perfect, gets drawn into a dangerous and risky romance. Not only is she struggling with a cold, distant marriage, but she also faces an irresistible temptation coming from her own husband's son, Liam. From quiet conversations to mesmerizing glances, everything begins to spiral out of control. Can Madison escape her overwhelming emotions and keep the boundary between right and wrong intact? The attraction is challenging everything she once believed. Find out the truth behind this story in the next video. Before continuing the story, tell me which city you are watching from. I want to know how far this video has come. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so I can send you exciting stories like this every day. My name is Madison. I wouldn't say my life was perfect, but I would always be thankful, thinking things could be worse. I've been married to my husband John for 7 years. Most of the years I spent with him were good, especially the first few. But over time, I noticed he became more focused on work than on me. He stopped talking to me and asking about my feelings. Still, I did everything I could to save our marriage. John had a son from his previous marriage, Liam. He was completely different from John. When we first met, he seemed a bit distant, but over time he became very close to me. Whenever we spent time together, he would always listen to me and try to understand me. This was something I had longed for. One day, everything changed. John went on a 3-day business trip. I thought I'd be home alone. But Liam unexpectedly knocked on the door. He had come back from college for a few weeks of vacation and wanted to spend time with his dad. When he found out John was at work, he said, "Then we'll hang out together," and came inside. We decided to cook dinner together. Everything seemed normal in the kitchen until I realized he was watching me. At first, I thought it was a misunderstanding, but then there was a moment when I couldn't ignore the different look in his eyes. That night, Liam and I had a long conversation. He usually talked about his dreams and plans, but that night he shared something more emotionally intimate. He told me how distant his father had been towards him. At that moment, I realized that not only I, but he too felt lonely in this house. These feelings brought us closer. But in that moment, I understood just how thin the line between right and wrong could be. I knew I had to stop it at some point, but the things I was feeling only confused me more. Liam stayed in the living room until late that night. We started watching a movie together, but I don't really remember what happened in the movie because my mind was completely elsewhere. I could feel Liam looking at me in a different way. It made me feel both uncomfortable and strangely intrigued. After the movie, we started talking while sitting there. Talking to him made me feel more relaxed than I had in a long time. Unlike the conversations with John, where he was always talking about work or brushing me off, Liam was listening carefully to everything I said. Feeling understood was something I had really missed. Eventually, it got very late, and I told him he should go to bed. Liam looked at me for a moment and said, "Talking to you feels so good. Can I stay here a little longer?" Those words only deepened the emotional confusion I was already feeling. I agreed, and we sat a little longer side by side. There was a moment of silence. Then Liam suddenly said, "You know, sometimes I realize how much I need to talk to someone like you." His voice was soft and sincere. I smiled at him and said, "It's nice to hear that. I'm happy you're here." But I hadn't thought about how my words might affect him. Liam looked into my eyes and slowly took my hand. "Maybe it's not right to say this, but I think you're really special," he said. In that moment, I was speechless. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to pull my hand away, but I couldn't. Please comment number 1 so that I can know that you liked the video and subscribe to our channel. Your support is a great inspiration and encouragement for us. Thank you very much. For a moment, I felt like my loneliness and the emptiness inside him had brought us together. I knew I had to stop this moment quickly. I gently pulled my hand back and said, "Liam, what you just said surprised me a bit. I think we all sometimes pick up the wrong signals." But even as I said this, I felt a heaviness in my heart. Liam said, "You're right. Maybe I went a little too far, but please don't misunderstand me. I have a lot of respect for you," and quickly stood up. "Good night, Madison," he said, and went to his room. I couldn't sleep for a long time that night. I was afraid to face my feelings for Liam. I didn't know where this situation would lead me, but somehow I kept thinking about every minute I spent with him. The next morning at breakfast, everything seemed normal. Liam acted like nothing had happened the night before, but I was struggling to hide the confusion inside me. We kept our distance from each other throughout the day. But that didn't mean everything was over. When John returned home, everything seemed to go back to normal. But I knew something had changed inside me. That brief moment with Liam kept playing in my mind. I knew how dangerous these feelings were, but I couldn't control myself completely. The next holiday break, when Liam came home again, I didn't know what would happen, but somehow I felt like this story wasn't going to end there. Months passed, Liam returned to his university, and everything at home seemed to go back to normal. But the confusion inside me never went away. I kept thinking about that brief moment we shared. John's cold attitude continued. He came home late from work, said only a few superficial words to me, and sat in front of the TV. We felt like strangers living in the same house. Eventually, I found out when Liam would be coming home again. It was university break, and he would stay with us for a few weeks. I was both looking forward to his return and ashamed of the feelings I had. But somehow this anticipation kept me going. When Liam arrived, everything seemed normal, just like before. I could still feel the warmth in his eyes, but this time I was more careful. I was determined to keep the boundaries between us. However, things didn't go as I had planned. One evening, when John said he would be home late from work, Liam and I were left alone. We had dinner together, and then Liam asked, "Do you want to get some fresh air?" We went outside and sat on the swing on the porch. The air was cool and calm, and the stars were brighter than usual. After a while, Liam broke the silence, took a deep breath, and said, "Madison, being here always makes me feel good. You know that, right?" My heart started beating fast. Not knowing what to say, I just nodded. "My relationship with my dad has never been strong," he continued. "But you've always made me feel more than just family. Talking to you, being close to you, gives me strength." His words both moved and frightened me. A voice inside me was shouting that this was wrong, but at the same time, Liam's words affected me deeply. Suddenly, he turned toward me and looked into my eyes. "I can't hide how I feel about you anymore. This might not be right, but I can't stop myself," he said. His words cornered me completely. I stood up in that moment, took a deep breath, and turned to him. "Liam, what you're saying, it's putting me in a very difficult position. I'm your stepmother." "You know this isn't right," I said, but even my words didn't sound convincing because my heart was telling me something different. Liam said, "You're right, Madison, but I can't suppress my feelings. I don't want to hurt you. I just wanted you to know how I feel." And he stepped back. That night, everything became even more complicated. Liam was determined to give me space, but neither of us could ignore what was happening between us. His presence unsettled me, but at the same time, I felt strangely drawn to him. One morning when John left early for work, Liam came to sit beside me during breakfast. After sitting silently for a while, he said, "Madison, I don't want to put you in a difficult situation, but these feelings are real. And when I think of you, I feel happy." I didn't know where this bond with Liam would lead me, but somehow I didn't want to escape from it either. Please pause for 2 seconds. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support is a great inspiration and encouragement for us. Thank you very much. Everything changed after Liam expressed his feelings. We were now more aware of each other's presence than ever before, but this made me feel increasingly uneasy every day. Deep down, I knew this was wrong, but I couldn't escape these feelings. One day, John came home early. Liam and I were having coffee in the kitchen when John saw us. He stared at us for a moment, as if he had sensed something, before asking with a mocking tone, "What are you two so happily talking about?" Liam quickly changed the subject, saying something partial, but the expression on John's face made me even more uncomfortable. That night, John unexpectedly approached me. In the bedroom, he asked a question he hadn't asked in a long time. "Do you love me, Madison?" His voice was different, almost as if he were trying to suppress some suspicion. I hesitated for a moment, then said, "Of course I do." But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure how convincing I sounded. As the tension between Liam and John increased, the pressure on me grew as well. Liam sought every opportunity to talk to me and hinted at his feelings. Meanwhile, John became more suspicious. One day, things completely spiraled out of control. John had to go out of town for a work meeting over the weekend. The thought of being alone with Liam brought those complicated feelings bubbling back to the surface. As soon as John left, Liam came directly to me. "Madison, we can't ignore these feelings anymore." His tone firm. You know your dad doesn't deserve you. He always leaves you alone, doesn't listen to you. But I'm here. I'll always listen to you. I'll understand you." Liam's words completely captivated me. I couldn't respond. In that moment, I realized how confused my feelings had become. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt so understood and so alone at the same time. But suddenly, everything changed. I heard a car engine outside. It was John's car. He had returned home, having canceled his meeting. Panic set in. Liam immediately tensed up and retreated to his room. When John came inside, he looked around as if searching for something. "You look a bit down, Madison. Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice soft but tinged with suspicion. I told him everything was fine, but I was struggling to hide the tension inside me. That night, we each retreated to our rooms, but I couldn't sleep. I didn't know how deep John's suspicions were, but I knew he felt something was off between us. Meanwhile, even with John in the room, Liam continued to steal secret glances at me. With each passing day, this tangled situation between the three of us grew more complicated. I felt that this wasn't just between Liam and me anymore. John was becoming part of this confusion too. I didn't know where this would lead, but I could sense that something was about to break. John's suspicions didn't take long to deepen. His silence, careful glances, and sudden questions made me uneasy. Liam, however, continued to show his feelings for me even when John seemed unaware. In this tense environment, I could hardly breathe. One evening, John organized a dinner for all of us. When Liam and I sat down at the table, John silently observed us. Finally, breaking the silence, he went straight to the point. "Madison, I feel like something's been off lately. Is there something you want to tell me?" The air was ice cold. My breath caught, and the words seemed stuck in my throat. But John continued. "Liam, you've been acting differently for a while. Something's going on here, and I want to know what it is." Liam hesitated, then stood up from the table. "Dad, maybe you should think more. Madison has always tried to support you, but you never even noticed," he said. His words shocked me. John, in turn, stood up angrily. "What are you trying to say?" he shouted. The tension between them escalated quickly. Liam accused John of neglecting me and not giving me the love I deserved. John, now fully aware of Liam's feelings toward me, completely lost control. That night, everything changed irreversibly. John demanded that Liam leave the house. "You will never step foot in this house again. Madison and I didn't end up like this because of you. But from now on, you have no place here," he said. Without saying a word, Liam packed his bags and left the house. In that moment, my heart broke. Losing both John and Liam deeply affected me. With Liam's departure, the house fell silent, but this silence didn't calm the turmoil inside me. Eventually, the bond between John and me completely shattered. As the days passed, our relationship grew even weaker. Despite his efforts to save our marriage, trust between us was lost. One day, I decided to file for divorce. When I told John, I saw pain in his eyes, but it seemed like he had been expecting it. He accepted it quietly. After the divorce, it took me a long time to recover. Those months were truly some of the most challenging times I had ever faced. The feelings of emptiness, pain, and at times overwhelming loneliness made me feel like I couldn't get through it. I didn't know what to do with my life when everything around me had changed. Losing a spouse, losing a part of my life that I thought would last forever, was difficult. But I understood eventually that life moves on, and I had to learn how to cope with that change. I never saw Liam again. Although we never met face to face, I heard that he had moved on and was doing well. That gave me a sense of relief, knowing that at least he had found his own path, even though that path no longer included me. I cannot describe the exact emotions I had for him, but I know that what happened between us is a part of the past that can never be erased. Both of us had to face decisions that couldn't be undone, and now we each had our own lives to continue. As I worked to rebuild my life, I began to realize that all the painful events that had happened to me were not random. They had taught me a deep and heavy lesson about the value of patience, the importance of clear-headed decision-making, and the price we pay when emotions overpower our judgment. Impulsive decisions, emotions left unchecked, can lead to consequences we can't foresee. Sometimes when we let our feelings lead the way, we fail to realize that we are betting a part of our life on those emotions. And when things unravel, we have to pay the price for what we've done. Looking back now, I better understand the weight of the mistakes I made. The hasty decisions, the moments of weakness that I once thought were unavoidable, I now realize led me to a result that I cannot go back from. But I can't regret those mistakes because it is through those mistakes that I became the person I am today. Both Liam and I, and John too, paid a heavy price to realize that sometimes outbursts of emotion are not our best allies in life. But the important thing is that I got through it all. I didn't let myself be crushed by the wreckage. Instead, I learned how to face every challenge that came my way with strength. Every mistake became a lesson. And from those lessons, I've learned to be more careful, to live more rationally, and to love myself more. Sometimes the wrong decisions are the turning points that help us realize we need to change, learn, and grow. Now, when I look back at everything, I no longer feel regret. The mistakes have passed, and I understand that it was those mistakes that helped me grow. I no longer live in remorse or pain. Instead, I live with acceptance and take confident steps forward on the path ahead. What happened is part of the past, and now I'm looking toward the future with a lighter heart, ready to continue my journey. In the end, after everything I've been through, I've managed to move on from that dark period in my life. The intense emotions, the wrong decisions, and the heavy consequences once made me feel like I couldn't stand strong. But now I find peace in knowing that it's all over. The pain from those hard times no longer haunts me. Instead, I view them as invaluable lessons that have made me stronger and more resilient. There were times when I wondered if I could ever live without carrying the scars from my past. But then I realized that we can't change the past, but we can change how we face it. And I chose to see everything from a positive perspective, even though the road ahead may still hold many challenges and obstacles. The painful memories may still exist, but they no longer control my life. I've accepted them and learned how to live with them. I take pride in the courage I found within myself to move forward, despite how difficult the path was. My past was far from perfect, but it shaped the person I am today. And I know I can continue not just because I've overcome my suffering, but because I've gained profound lessons from those mistakes. I no longer live in fear or regret. Instead, I live with freedom and strength, ready to face any challenge that comes my way. Now, as I look back on everything, I no longer feel pain or remorse. It's all behind me, and I understand that it was just a part of my journey. I've walked through it, and I've grown from it. I've been able to rise up and move forward with a lighter heart and a more peaceful soul. So for now, I want to end the story here, but this is just the beginning of my story. The next part, where I share even more personal and deeper moments, will be even more beautiful and exciting. If you want to follow the next part and discover more heartfelt details of my life, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I'm sure you'll love these stories. Looking back at Madison's story, we can see that sometimes the decisions made out of emotion lead to consequences we never anticipated. Love, betrayal, and intense feelings created a dramatic story, but it also served as a valuable lesson about self-control, honesty, and respect in relationships. No one is immune to moments of weakness, and in those moments, emotions can cloud our judgment, leading us to make choices that may have long-lasting effects. However, it is precisely during these times of vulnerability that we truly realize the importance of staying clear-headed and determined. While Madison's story is undeniably a family tragedy, it is also a journey of self-discovery. Despite the consequences of her mistakes, it was through those very mistakes that Madison grew into a stronger and more resilient person. This is a powerful reminder that no matter how many storms life throws at us, we can always rise again and continue moving forward. Mistakes are not the end, they are the lessons that allow us to reflect on ourselves, rebuild, and create a brighter future. In life, we can't always predict the outcomes of our decisions, but it is through those outcomes, both good and bad, that we learn and grow. As we face challenges, we often do not know the long-term effects of the decisions we make. Yet these mistakes sometimes teach us lessons that are far more valuable than the initial pain they may cause. Once we are aware of these lessons and learn from them, we become stronger, more confident, and more resolute in the face of future difficulties. Therefore, when feeling trapped or lost, it's important not to give up. Stand tall, face the reality of what has happened, and learn from it. Every experience, whether positive or negative, has its value, and the key is having the courage to move forward. Madison's story is proof that while emotions may lead us down the wrong path, self-awareness and persistence can help us overcome the temptations and struggles that life presents. It serves as a powerful reminder that life is never easy, but we can always change, learn, and grow stronger if we choose to reflect on our mistakes and rise above them. If you found this story valuable and want to explore more emotional tales, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's share these touching moments, valuable lessons, and real-life stories that help you understand more about life. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.